Welcome everybody to the Cooperative City in Quarantine. This is our second episode and we're very, very happy to have you with us here today. Cooperative City in Quarantine.
I'm sorry, we're not up yet and now we're up.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Cooperative City in Quarantine. We have been now running at our second episode and we are very happy to have you with us. Cooperative City in Quarantine is a project operated by Utopian. It's, let's say, an experimental project in this very special times we are in, as a spin-off from the Cooperative City magazine on collaborative urban practices around Europe. And we decided since last week that we would run a weekly episodes telling a little bit about what is happening around Europe in this very, 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 very special times, because it's important to share what is happening, our fears, our challenges, but also the solutions that we're finding in our cities. So today's focus is on food production, food distribution challenges in different cities. And we're very, very happy to have with us Marcelline Bonneau, Igor Kos, and as a remote figure, we will have Francesco Paniè from Rome, who unfortunately couldn't join us in this very first part of the discussion, so he will be joining us via video. So thank you very much for being here. Igor, Marcelline, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, very welcome. So, given the very special moment we're in, it would be very nice if you, first of all, please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit where you are and how long have you been in lockdown for, and what is at the moment your connection with food? And I will show a little picture from where you are. Go ahead, please. The floor is yours, Marcelline.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcelline Bonneau. So I'm based in Brussels. I've been actually living in Brussels for 12 years, originally from Paris. We've been in lockdown, I would say officially for 10 days. It's been 2 weeks that the situation is quite changing here. So in terms of food, it's been 2 weeks that people rush to the shops and bought not only toilet paper, but also pasta, rice, eggs and flowers. My connection to food. So I'm an urban expert working a lot with the European cities which deal with sustainable food and productions sustainable food production, consumption, all issues related to urban agriculture. I'm also an innovative action expert for the Taste in Five project, which is also focusing, to put it in a nutshell, on the use of food as a leverage for social issues in cities. I'm also doing some anti-food waste projects here in Brussels. I also have a podcast on anti-food waste practices on the radio. So many things, many interests. I also had once a blog with food recipes. So
you will share with us the links and the videos.
Oh yes, for sure.
So that who's following us, our audience can interact and know a little bit more about this. And
not to overload you with too much information, but yes, indeed. And I want to say straight ahead that in order to prepare for today's session, I had lots of discussions with lots of friends and colleagues from the producer side, the retail side, the consumer side, and municipalities. So let me already thank them so that it's done. In Belgium, Alicia Pereira Pimentel, Quentin Verstappen. In France, Cécile Grigoriev and Thibault Lalanne. And in Spain, Albert Garcia Machan. And I also referred a lot to the FAO facts, which I strongly recommend you to have a look at. And thanks a lot already, Daniela, for inviting us to be part of this discussion. I have lots of things to share with you today. I know I won't have the time to share all of them, so just interrupt me when you will need me to stop.
No, it's a flexible discussion. We're here among friends. So actually, let's see if I manage. So I'm renowned for not being a super techie person, but I asked everybody to share a little picture about where you are. What do you see from your window? Because in times of quarantine, the view from the window is fundamental. So here, Marcelline shared a picture from her view. I hope everybody can see it as well. So this is a little glimpse about what is happening in Brussels. So thank you, Marcelline.
So that's I must precise, that's the morning picture and the meeting picture. but I also have another view on where people pass by during the day. I have a balcony on the other side, which is also very inspiring, actually, in terms of daily practices and how often people go and do shopping at the moment.
Okay, very, very good, very good. And Igor from Maribor, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Igor Kos. I come from the city of Maribor from Slovenia. I work as a consultant at the Institute WeCycle here in Maribor, Institute for Circular Economy, and we are connected to the, let's say, food system in a way that we are in the second part of our project here in Maribor under the Urban Innovative Action Initiative. The project is called Urban Soil for Food, and you can imagine that from the title of this project, we are dealing with the local food topics. There are different topics. So one of the topics is local food production, especially in the community gardens, but also with the local food chain. So we are trying to connect local food producers and consumers with the help of digital tools. So this tool was developed last year, and in this year I can announce that now during this time some of the neighboring municipalities, so not our municipality, but municipalities that are on the border of our municipality in Maribor, are already using this app as one of the tools to kind of connect producers and consumers. Now in Maribor, we are not in the complete lockdown as this is the case in Italy and probably in Brussels. We have stores closed, but the food is still accessible, it's available, there is no shortage. I can just say I was last time, the first time this week, in the store 3 hours ago. There was no problem. People are not actually rushing to the stores anymore. We had kind of this panic buying 2 weeks ago, but now everything has settled. Even the farmers market, it's open 3 days a week, so on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So from that point of view, situation is okay. Now, previous 2 days we had the snowfall, which is kind of a bit unusual for this time of year, and Daniela will probably share a picture of that later or now.
I think we will try now, if you like. Let's see if technology is on my side.
Okay, let's try. No?
I can still see Igor.
And welcome to Maribor.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is view from my window. So I live fairly closely to the center of the city. So it's a 10-minute walk. But as you can see, there is nobody there. So this weather actually helped with the national policy of social distancing. So our government is encouraging people to stay at home, to kind of connect digitally or in other ways. But we are still permitted to go out. You can go out for a walk. You can do your exercise. You can go with the dog out. So from that point of view, we don't have a restriction. We are free to go to the stores. There are recommended hours for, let's say, the elderly population. So between 8 and 10 a.m. It's said to the other population, please don't go to the stores. Let this part of the population supply themselves, and then afterwards you please go to the stores. And I must say people are actually doing these things properly, and through this also the number of cases is a bit lower than maybe in other countries, and we just hope that we stop this curve not going too much high up, but it will continue to go linearly up, but it's still going up.
Yeah, unfortunately this is the case all over Europe still, and this is very, very scary. There's nothing else to say. Yeah. But at the same time, let's keep our spirits high. So at this point, what I will try to do is I will make you envious if I manage, and show you my own garden.
All the flowers you have there, right?
But I must say, actually, it's not a picture from today, because as you have seen, I am speaking from inside the flat because it's pouring with rain today. So no garden for you, I'm sorry. But I just thought that I would try and make envious those in Northern Europe about the usually good weather from Southern Europe. So
no, apparently now we have it. Apparently the north of Europe has had nice weather for almost a week now. So sorry.
Well, at this point, this is something also for our audience. Please also feel free to also share a little bit also about pictures from what you see from your garden, from your window, and also to tell us a little bit where you are living in and what is the situation that you are living in. So we will be having a first round of discussions with our speakers, and then we will be in the second half of the discussion also opening to questions. So anybody that is listening to us and has some questions, please write in the chat of the Cooperative City Facebook page where you are following us, and we will be very, very happy to pose the question to the speakers and open a discussion around that. So this said, I would like to introduce you to our third speaker, who is, let's say, remotely joining us. And at this point, let's see if technology once again is on my side, and if I can introduce you to Francesco.
No sound. We cannot hear him. We can see, but we cannot hear him.
Oh dear. Why is that? Okay. This is interesting. Okay, I will give it a last try, and then if it doesn't work, I'm going to maybe ask my colleague Yilmaz maybe to jump in and give a little support. I knew that the technology at some point would trick us into this. Let's see, how can we get
We can
this?
see that the sound is on, but
let's try. Any better?
no, I think we hear from very, 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 very far away, but it's just a guess.
Yeah, there is a kind of a noise, but it's not, I cannot understand what he's talking about.
Oh dear. Okay, I will give the very last attempt, and if not, I think I'm going to maybe we will proceed and get Francesco on board. Okay, so maybe they tell me maybe take the microphone off. So let me see. Oops. Please, everybody, as you might remember the first episode, we had huge technological challenges. It's getting anyway better. So let's try now again to meet Francesco.
Hello everyone, I'm Francesco. I'm from Italy. I work for an environmental NGO called Terra. We work mainly on food supply chains at the national level and on global trade of agricultural products. And in the last 5 years, we mainly worked on large distribution channels. So we try to keep supermarkets accountable for their supply chains and to respect workers' rights and to be more transparent.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Same here.
Yes, so thank you, Francesco. Francesco will us possibly later if he manages to get out of the meeting that his organization had to set up, given the very special conditions we're in. And the reason why we decided to start speaking about food, and this is an issue that also emerged from what Marcelline and Igor was saying. We see now, especially with the quarantine, how there has been exactly this mania of frantic anxiety of running to the supermarkets and getting everything. There's been a lot of images of complete supermarkets practically empty trying to get the food. And this is obviously this has really challenged the issue that we have in our cities in terms of the local distribution systems. But the real issue also that we are facing is the issue concerning the food production, because what we are seeing in this moment is that there is a huge challenge also in terms of collecting the food that is harvesting the food that is being produced at this moment, but also being able to seed new products. And this is also something that we would like to sort of open a round of discussions. And before getting on to also our speakers, we have Amedeo Valente from the market in Rome, who sent us this morning very early as they were working a video of what is happening in one of the markets and how one of the food markets owned by the city of Rome, and how they're adapting to try and meet the needs of food distribution in the city. And I think it could give a nice ground for the discussion. So please meet Amedeo Valente.
No, ok.
Buongiorno a tutta la comunità europea che in diversa misura sta lottando e cercando di adoperarsi per l'emergenza coronavirus. E questo è il mercato, vi faccio vedere all'interno a quest'ora di prima, così per farvi entrare nel vivo della nostra comunità. E chiaramente il lavoro per noi è molto cambiato. Si lavora soprattutto con le consegne a domicilio, il mercato, eccolo qui, come vedete è molto grande, ma facciamo entrare all'interno non più di 25-30 persone. Credo che i mercati stiano facendo un lavoro veramente importante di servizio pubblico in questo momento di emergenza, soprattutto per quanto riguarda le consegne a domicilio e soprattutto per gli anziani. Di comune accordo con l'assessore Valerio Casini del Municipio Secondo abbiamo costituito una rete, l'abbiamo chiamata Mercati Solidali, per fare in modo di portare il più velocemente possibile la spesa a casa delle persone anziane senza fargli pagare il costo di consegna. È un servizio pubblico, dobbiamo portare il cibo a casa delle persone. Quando usciamo c'è una città che chiaramente è deserta. E quindi, come dire, diventa un lavoro difficile anche perché le richieste sono tante, sono tantissime, e stiamo cercando di abituare le persone, insomma, a farci gli ordini magari il giorno prima per il giorno dopo, per consentire ai trasportatori, diciamo, di poter accontentare tutti. Molti banchi sono chiusi all'interno del mercato perché sono settori non alimentari, per loro è un periodo veramente difficile, e quindi speriamo che possano presto ritornare, insomma, a lavorare qui nel mercato. Un saluto, ciao.
So thank you, Amedeo. This was a glimpse a little bit about what is happening in the markets in Rome. And I think it would be interesting to sort of share a little bit of impressions also on how you relate to the food distribution. And if you have also inputs on the food production, which is also something that is definitely an issue at this stage. Marcelline, would you like to give a bit of impressions?
Yeah, so I will start maybe by distribution and also by the markets. Right. So here in Belgium, markets have been closed for quite a while now. They are closed now as well in France and in Spain. But in these two latest countries, France and Spain, there can be some exceptions for opening. So, for example, we know that in Montsartou, in the south of France, they have asked for an exception for the market to be open, and it's managed. I think it's pretty similar to the video we've just shown. So it's really organized in a very structured way, ensuring that there are not too many people at once, with the right distance and all the sanitary rules, which are being followed. As some markets, as most of the markets in these countries are closed, I associations together with the state, together with the regional governments or other level of governments have set up some platforms in order to enable producers to link directly with consumers. So these are quite, I know that for France, these are quite new ideas which are being implemented now. To which extent can a big, someone who usually sells on the market can sell directly to consumer? That's something which is still being tried out in many instances. But for example, in what they're doing once again in Montsartou is that they have some pickup points and drive-in options. Now, what about the shops? So our food shops are open, are kind of required to be open. And actually, even though there is economic unemployment authorized for non-necessary activities in Belgium, people in the food sector don't have access to that because it's a necessary sector and we need people to be able to produce and to sell food. So that's quite of an issue. I would say that's quite an issue because it happened that people working in food shops don't want to be working right now. They're scared. They don't want to be on the first line and potentially infected by the virus from the clients, but also because there have been an increasing aggressivity from some of the clients in the shops because of their own anxiety or because some of the shops have sometimes shortages. And I'll come back to shortages in a minute in terms of production or distribution sector. So so the shops are working. Actually, they are having the business is working extremely well in the food shops, so well that apparently that's the reason why in Spain some salaries have been increased by 20%. So what do people buy? When we talked about it before, I was quite surprised to see also that in a random supermarket, not I would say organic or anything special, not only rice and pasta was gone, but also all fruits and vegetables, especially 2 weeks ago, and all the flour and the eggs. The issue being that, for example, chicken cannot give more than 80% of an egg each day. So how do you do when you have a limited number of chicken and you cannot have more? So that's one of the supply issue as well. Once again, I'll go back to that in a minute. There has been an increasing number of sales in the short food supply chains, especially with one intermediary. So all the schemes such as La Ruche qui dit oui, and I know that you have it in Italy as well, the B which says yes. Mm-hmm. I forgot how you say that, but it exists in a few countries. So short food supply chain with one intermediary. They have doubled, tripled, an increasing number of people want to go and buy them there because some of them might be discovery, but especially because it's a one-stop shop where you can buy food, where you can get it all packed, and many of them, at least at first, offer deliveries. Now, some of them discover that it's been huge. All the clients wanted to be delivered, and it's just been non-manageable. So all the people I've talked to in this field have said that there has been a boom. I'll come back if I have some time at some point in terms of consumption behavior, what it means. Once again, access to food. So restaurants are closed here. Some restaurants propose deliveries, but some others on the contrary decided to stop deliveries because they say we have to remain contained like anybody else. We have to do our part of the story, and we cannot be continuing this economy. We have to stop to reduce our contacts. And you have a few platforms which have been set up in all the countries I talked to, platforms which centralize either the list of all the restaurants which are now delivering food or being pickup points where you can actually go and pick up the food. And some platforms even try and manage the system, order online the food from all these restaurants, which were not part of whatever Uber Eats system before. Some of these platforms are led by municipalities. Some platforms are private initiatives. You have lots of them. In terms of production, everybody says there is enough food.
Marcelline, I'm wondering, sorry for interrupting. You sent a very interesting image that you made. Shall we put it up?
Yeah, you can try. I'm not sure anybody will understand it. That's
Well,
all my information. You can try and put it on.
I don't know if we will, but I think it's anywhere that we appreciate very much. I think it's a very interesting.
I'll show you on my hand where it is. Yeah. So do I still have a bit of time to talk about production?
I think maybe a couple of minutes very briefly, and then we can get back to it also, because we're getting exactly some questions also from the audience. So in order to have also time for that, but please tell us a few words about this as you've been considering about it. Absolutely.
So the retail sector, basically there is enough, there's enough rice, pasta, flour. I said with the eggs, there's an issue about just the limit what the chicken can produce each day. What takes time in shops is just to, put, especially in the very first week, there were so many people going to the shops, it would take a lot of time just to put back the food on the shelves. And for the intermediaries also delivering the shops, it's a whole reorganization. They are not used to having such huge quantities to go and deliver, but there is enough, so there's no worry about that. What about the issue for farmers? So that's something you mentioned, Daniela. At the moment, everything is working perfectly. What are the main threats? There's an issue about labor force. In many countries, some of the planting activities, like for asparagus, relies on foreign labor force. Let's say in Belgium, it would be the Poles, or in France. So it's still intra-EU, but if people are not able to travel from one country to another, it prevents them from actually doing the work. There's an issue about the illegal migrants in Spain, which I discussed with Albert earlier on today, which is not really solved yet. But that's where they also try and hire unemployed people to do these tasks. As I've heard in Belgium, these tasks are quite okay paid. It's just that it's extremely harassing, which leads us to a more generic question about, all these jobs nobody wants to do and which are now increasingly available. Who should access them, and is it fair that these are the most in need, which access the jobs that nobody really wants? So another issue in terms of provisioning of food will be if the trucks stop going from one country to another. At the moment, there's no issue with that, and there's no issue with the borders being closed in that regard, but that could happen. Mm-hmm. And then also imports from overseas, which could be an issue.
Yeah.
Very last thing, in terms of planting scheme, at the moment, the whole production is based on our consumer patterns. But what if people start to eat more cooked vegetables because they're scared of eating raw vegetables? What impact will it have on, the vegetables we're planning to have in the summer, like, I don't know, a raw cucumber and salads, and this might need some readjustment. Just something very important to say, it's also only the very beginning, and obviously these are just thoughts, ideas we are all thinking about and which have been shared. We have no idea what's going to happen even next week, in 2 weeks, or in 2 months. So all that we're discussing today, I think, is very important to keep us reflecting upon those issues, but we really just don't know how also in terms of consumption we're going to evolve in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting also the fact that you also compared already some different countries, and I think this will be further enriched by the inputs from Igor and Francesco, because there's been some articles. Now, obviously, the big discussion at European level has been the meeting that there was yesterday in terms of discussing the possibility of COVID bonds. And there is a very big fraction in the European countries on how to proceed on this. But there has been some articles also with much less visibility also in terms of what is the discussion in terms of agriculture, and how can the Common Agriculture Policy Funds invest also towards trying to support the emergency we're going through now. And I see that in the major issues that we are facing, still no decision has been taken into this, but this is definitely something that will have to be done. Igor, can I ask you to give us a little bit of an impression of what is happening in Maribor and in Slovenia in terms of this?
Yeah, not a problem. So, as I said before, here are things as normal as they can be regarding the times that are right now. So basically, all not necessary shops are closed. So the food stores are open, so you can go to them to supply yourself. The time a day that the shops are open has been shortened. So it's not the usual hours, but it's shorter. And what is special, they limit number of people who can be in the shop at one time. So there is a security guard at the entrance of the shop, and once one person leaves, another one can enter. So there is always a limited number of people inside of the shop. So this provides basically the base security with the distance and not overcrowding at the counter, which is the main point where people can actually be. They also laid markers on the floor signaling the safe distance. So basically it's 2-meter distance. So you move from box to box, if you can imagine what how it looks like. So from that point of view, it's kind of, let's call it a safe. You have disinfection at the entrance, you get the gloves from the shop. So there is precautions being made when you enter the shop, and when you go out also you can disinfect again before you put your stuff either in the back or in your car. It depends how you arrive to the shop. As I said, the farmers markets are opened. Not all of them and not at all the locations, but the main location is open. And I just a few hours ago heard the news that the neighboring municipality is opening farmers market again. So this is being done on the regular basis. So from that point of view, the producers can sell their products and the consumers can come, but they are, of course, in the market, they have to keep the distance. There is not such a strict control as in the shops because it's in the open space, of course, but people are being now for more than 2 weeks preparing for this, and they are actually keeping the distance. So even if you go out for a daily walk, you cannot be all day just in your apartment moving from one room to the other. People are still keeping distance. So usually it's 2 to 3 meters, and from that point of view, everything is fine. As I said, to my knowledge, there is no shortage of certain things. Maybe 1 or 2 products which are specific. In Slovenia, we have a situation that we are not really self-sustainable in some areas of the food production. So with fresh vegetables and fruits, we are below 50%. So we are dependent on the imports, which for now, everything goes smoothly, even with the borders closing, because from Slovenia, you cannot travel without a reason to Italy, to Austria, to Hungary, or to Croatia. And even if you do so, you have to self-quarantine for 14 days, which doesn't make any sense to go. If you're living there, okay, but otherwise, and people who are traveling for a work, because Maribor is 20 kilometers from Austrian border, and some of the people living in Maribor are working in Austria, they have to have a fresh coronavirus test with them, and of course permission from the work to come to work. So these are administrative things that are kind of limiting also the numbers of people traveling from country to country. So from that point of view, the good thing that happened is that this situation kind of promoted local food supplies. So these chains are being now established. Municipalities published openly on the web pages a list of the local producers with addresses and the contacts, so people can do this. So contact them directly, or in the case of 2 neighboring municipalities, they started to use this inner rural app that we developed in the Urban Soil for Food project to directly connect. So this situation kind of positively speeded up use of this app in the neighboring municipalities, and in some cases also in our municipality. So from the farmer's point of view, it's a work like normals here. The season has started and people are working in the fields. We will see what will happen. We are not so much dependent on the workforce from abroad to do the work. I can testify for my parents' garden, everything is in order, and I can still get supplies from there, which is kind of a positive in my personal case. But as I walk through the urban gardens, I see that people are really working in the gardens, so they are aware that this is also a good time to spend outside, because when you are working at your garden, you are actually 10, 15, 20 meters from other people. So they are also keeping safe distance there.
Okay.
It's not the best situation that we are in right now, but considering all the limitations and all the things that are going on, we have quite comfortable situation with the food supply, with the quality of food, and the quantities also
That's
are
very
here.
good.
So hopefully this will not get any worse. From my previous work, when I worked for one of the larger chains in Europe, retail chains, I know a bit about supply system for the retailers. So I don't expect any shortages for, let's say, next 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
If this would be longer, then we can have some of the products not coming on time, but now the production is going. The things are in storages one way or the other, and they are being delivered. So from that point of view, I don't see exactly that. And this is also why I was telling everybody, please don't panic buy, don't stock up, because there is enough things already being produced, and there will be ways that these things will come to the supermarkets, and they will be available.
Okay.
And now after 2 weeks, basically this is the case. And of course, because we are on the steps of Balkans, we also keep our spirits up with the humor, and there is a lot of this going on the social media.
Yeah, I think as everybody's probably getting this, we're not going to be sharing right now any of the funny videos.
No. I'm just saying.
But I think that we can definitely, that's a bit the spirit to some extent, is also to be uplifting. I must confess now, the next speaker, Francesco, will be telling us about the situation in Rome and in Italy. And I must say, unfortunately, I have to say this will not be one of the happy highlights of this discussion, but I count on Igor and Marcelline to help us think of the bright future after we hear from Francesco. Okay.
Moment we have a big problem of labor market in agriculture, because we waited in Italy for 370,000 people coming from the Eastern Europe for the harvest to pick up some agricultural products for the national and international market. But they did not come because they are afraid of this pandemic. And so we are facing a gigantic problem of labor market. So we are pushing the government to take urgent measures to take action and make some how can I say, massive regularization of the migrant workers living in the ghettos. We in Italy have a lot of ghettos, especially in the southern Italy, where these people live without access to water, access to electricity, and seeing their rights constantly violated. So we're trying with a call for the institutions to take action and do, as I said, this massive regularization, and find some places, some safer places for these people to live their lives. And because, as you know, there are no measures that these people can take to prevent the pandemic, and this can become a huge problem of health, because a lot of them have not an access to the health system.
Yeah, so as I was saying, thank you, Francesco. That's unfortunately not really one of the happy sides of one of the many not very happy sides of all this story. But as you know, because with Marcelline and Igor, we've been in contact now for quite some years, because we've been working on different European projects, and we do believe, despite this very difficult time that Europe is facing, that the international exchange amongst people that are willing to cooperate can bring really a lot of good. And this is a little promo moment. As some of you might know, we are very active on the topic of food markets, and this is also the reason why in food cycles, and how public policies are an opportunity to bring forward a more sustainable model of food production and distribution in our cities. And we have existing infrastructures that are slowly being dismantled in many cases, and we believe that it's really, really important to relaunch them. So a little bit, this was also the aim in the publication that we did. Unfortunately, it's in Italian, but we will circulate the link. So for those of you who would like to browse through the PDF, which is available online on cooperativecity.org, where you are following us, also on the website, where you will also find the articles on many cases around Europe and the previous discussions here on Cooperative City in Quarantine. But what we really try to do is to try and bring also uplifting stories that can give us hope, because I think in this moment, I don't know how you lot are feeling, but I think this is also something that is really important, is that given the difficult situation we're in, we really need to have something that is uplifting, something that is also giving us hope. And this is where a lot of projects have been carried out by civil society, has shown to be marvelous, but public authorities and private sector and research have also been able to really put their skills and their knowledge in. And so for this, I would also like to ask you, Marcelline, what do you see that are a couple of the most interesting projects and initiatives that you would really think that we have to share across Europe, because we can all learn from it?
Well, I'd like to share some uplifting examples, but also to be a bit cautious about the current situation. So I don't really want to follow Francesco's mood, but I think there are also other important issues to bear in mind at the moment. So, for example, in terms of consumption, we haven't talked so much about, people keeping in storage all their pasta, rice, whatever. We hear increasingly that, people are cooking at home, that have more time, more availability, that, they bake cakes with the children because it becomes an occupation, as most of families now have to take care of children at home. So all these are quite promising, maybe in terms of long-lasting changing eating habits and cooking habits. This can be uplifting, but I would like to also be cautious about the fact that now we hear everywhere that people are bored, they don't really know what to do with their daily lives, and they're happy to spend time cooking. Well, you also have many people who actually are quite super busy, who have a lot of work to do, have more work than usual, all the families, and mostly women taking care of the children at the same time as working, and all this. So there is a part of maybe some people getting into this mood and also cooking more. It might not be the case for everybody. An issue which arose with the fact that people went directly to the shops, like the first days of lockdown, to buy all that there was that all the cheapest products went away the first ones, meaning that those without a lot of revenues were preventing from buying the food they would usually buy, which became a real issue for them just to access to food. There is people storing food. I'm sure that a lot of it has gone to food waste, has been wasted. That happens as well. As people shop more, apparently there's less food surplus in the shops. So that's good on the one hand, but on the other hand, you also have a lot of NGOs which go go and collect food surplus for different charities and different projects. And now they don't have so many resources, and they don't have many resources left. And there is a strong competition between all these projects. So, I mean, these are changes. You know, I don't want to be down in sharing all this, but it's important to see that the landscape in which we're evolving is changing a lot. I discussed with Albert from Moyet earlier today, and he shared with me a very interesting, uplifting example case.
Thank you, Albert.
But you have all these videos also, you know, developed by people, by NGOs, by public authorities. So you have all these, but I would say it's the trend right now. So this is positive as well. But, he shared with me the fact that, you know, you have lots of people who get access to food, for example, in canteens with a reduced price when they don't have so many revenues. As these canteens are closed now, these people don't have access to this cheaper food. So within 8 days, they managed to develop a credit card on which they actually top up with the money kind of these people would have benefited from had they got the discounted food from the public canteens. This has just been made available by Lacaixa's bank card. These people can now use this money, the equivalent of the reduction they would get on a daily basis, to go and buy food directly in the shops with these credit cards. So I was impressed by the way the system went out, and it's been extremely effective. In Montsartou, they have the same system as what Igor was saying. People have the right to go to the community gardens, following a strict schedule and following some sanitary rules so that people would not be close to each other. So you have lots of them as well. Canteens as well. You have in Montsartou, the school canteens, which are fed by local production. They keep on being fed by or using the food of local production, but there they feed not school children anymore, but children of those families of parents being activated in this period. So from the healthcare sector, but also municipal agents or the police force, which need it. In Moyet, they look into a specific delivery system. So the canteen would prepare food, which would be picked up by some others. Yeah.
Okay. We have also a lot of questions from the audience, so I would ask you to keep
sure,
because it would be nice also to get also some of your insights and ideas also to some of the questions, because we're getting quite a few. So I will read them out. But first, Igor, tell us a little bit. What do you see that are a couple of tips that you would like to say? In Maribor, you see that there are something that are quite interesting that you would like to highlight.
Well, first thing that was really kind of impressive that when the national order came down, the restaurants and all the, let's say, this kind of establishments have to close, they of course were stuck up with some kind of, you know, food because they didn't plan to close down, because this was kind of from one day to the other. So the first thing that happened is that primarily they supplied their employees that were now putting on the kind of not permanent, but leave for the time being. So the first thing that happened, that employees got the rest of the food that was basically already in the stores or in the restaurant. So they could take out and supply themselves. So this was one of the things that was really positive, and where they cannot do this or were not able to get everything out, they openly, publicly announced, we are giving food away to this and this at this times, at this location. So basically they emptied everything out. So no food waste would come from the restaurants being closed. So what in the storage went out. This is one of the things that happened, you know, in a click, in a day. The second thing that was really good is that this solidarity help in the neighborhoods came out. So younger people are buying for the elderly people, so they don't have to expose themselves in the shops to the possibility of catching a virus or something like that. So younger people were posting you know, leaflets in the hallways. If you need need to go to the shop for you. Just call this number, I will come to your door, and then you will give me the list and the money, and I will supply. There were random kind of also things happening. For example, an elderly woman came to the store and asked younger men if he would do the shopping and give them the money. Then he came back, gave her a bag, everything was in, and also money was in. So people were buying food for each other. So these kind of things are going on the constant basis. And I think this collective spirit, we are in this boat together, and we will get through this thing together. It's really coming up. Which is kind of...
Thank you, Igor. This is a lovely message to share with us. Thanks.
Another thing that was really not so upgoing here in Maribor was food delivery. So this kind of situation also promoted this so-called e-food network, where restaurants now established transition points at the entrance. So basically there is no direct connection, and you cannot, as a normal citizen, come and pick up your food, but you have to order through this system. So it has to be delivered, and it's basically no contact between persons. So some of the restaurants switched, they are more closed, but the kitchen is still working. So you can deliver, you can order your food and it will be delivered by bicycle. And this is the most important thing. It's a CO2 friendly delivery.
Very good.
So from that point of view, these are some of the positives. So restaurants are kind of also trying to supply with the freshly cooked food, those that Marcelline also already mentioned, that have to work, because some of the utility services have to work. You know, you have to have your waste still being collected. The other things that run the city had to be done. So the district heating is working. The road maintenance work still has to be done, and so the problem is nothing is open. But these people that work, they have under the Slovenian law, half an hour or 1 hour to have a meal in the work time. So you know, the lunch time or something like that. But nothing is working, so they cannot buy this
quite
stuff.
a challenge. Yeah, so this is why, and a very big thank you from all of us to all those who are working under these conditions. Absolutely.
Yeah, so this was also being organized. So the building sites that are still ongoing, and there are a few because of the limitations of the time, and municipalities also, where they started some project, they want to finish it on time, not to have this situation as an excuse. And because of the precautions were done, so now food is being delivered to those building sites, because the workers there cannot buy these things anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Igor, I will interrupt you here because we also have some questions from the audience for you. So we want to have the possibility also for having a round of question and answers also with the public. Okay. Because the public needs to also have the time to digit the questions, I will let you know that we have a couple of minutes to also hear what Francesco and Terra Ondus he's working in are doing right now. And after that, we will do the round of question and answers. So please start sending in your questions if you have any questions, comments, considerations based on what Marcelline, Igor and Francesco will be telling us. Thank you.
We can't hear.
No sound.
Signed by...
Yes.
We wrote a letter asking the government to take action in this direction, and the letter was signed by trade unions, environmental NGO, humanitarian NGOs, and we are seeking more signatures, if you want, as organizations working on food issues. You can sign this call, writing to me to francesco.paniè terraonlus.it, and we were very pleased to have your attention to this letter, because we think this is a huge opportunity to help those people who were left behind in all these years and exploited who suffered labor exploitation and gang mastering. So thank you for your attention, and thank you, Daniela, to ask me to talk to you.
So thank you, Francesco. So this is, there's also a lot to be done also
of also pressurizing our governments to be able to also really direct attention and resources towards this. Aside of all this very bottom up that we see, we also have to make sure that the top down is also meeting the needs. We have had a lot of questions from our audience, so I will try now to read some of them because they have actually been very, very active, and please forgive me if I will have to cut short some of your questions, because some of them have been very articulated, and there will be also the opportunity to continue the discussion also in remote. So starting a little bit, I will read, we'll do it like this. I'll read 3 of the comments and questions and have a first quick round from Marcelline and Igor. Considering that it's already 5 minutes to 6 and we said we would finish around 6, I asked for, in order to have a feedback on all the questions, to sort of maybe give some very first impressions. So one thing, for example, from Fabio from Rome is, I run an urban garden in Rome. We don't know if we can continue to remain open because public parks are closed now, but food producers are active. National legislation and municipal legislation don't clarify this aspect. And I think, Igor, this could be very interesting also. How do you see it, given a lot of work that you're doing in terms of urban gardening also in Maribor? Manuela from Rome also is sharing about solidarity food packages projects in Naples. And there is a web link also for those of you who might be interested. And I think this is very much connected to what Marcelline was also talking about. We have Chrysogelos, and please forgive me if my pronunciation in Greek is not too good, from Athens, telling us food shops are more or less open. There are restrictions on how many people can enter the shops, like everywhere. At the moment, there is no problems buying food goods in shops or in markets. The main problem is the difficulties in delivering goods to elderly people who must stay at home. We don't know what will happen in the future concerning the ability of farmers and the workers in agriculture to continue their work. Usually migrants with no papers or migrants, they stay in very bad conditions in agricultural areas, are supported in production and delivery of goods. In any case, there is a lack of workers to cultivate the land, collect and transport the food producers. Now, I think this the comment from Francesco Chrysogelos is really about, I think this is somewhere where no matter how much effort is done from NGOs and bottom up, this is where we really have to push also our governments to intervene on this. We have a lot of more questions that are coming in. You're flooding us, so we'll try to do our best to answer. I will read one more from Ireland. We have Eldon telling us that currently in Ireland, the food supply chain seemed to be operating unaffected. In the early stages of the crisis, there was panic buying, but that has settled. Similarly to Maribor or in Slovenia, I would say. There is concern over the meat industry as chains like McDonald's have closed. There is also concern about safety measures in meat processing plants, and some workers have refused to work in unsafe places. It remains to be seen if that will be affected the food supply. More restaurants have closed, except those that can offer delivery or collection services. There has been a move towards people growing their own food. Garden centres are reporting shortages of seeds and vegetable plants. So again, Igor, I think this would be interesting from your side. How do you see it? And community-led initiatives are being created to offer shopping services to elderly people. Supermarket chains are reporting delays of 1 week to deliver online shopping. So the issue of elderly keeps recurring. So we have had another couple of questions, so I would do this very first round, and then we'll try to get to the questions also from the others. So Marcelline and Igor, would you like to give a first impressions on what comments have arrived?
Yes, ladies first.
Ladies first. Oh, that was an easy one with the complicated questions. Chivalry is first.
I don't even know how I should react to that, Igor. But anyway, I have many things to say, so I'll keep the floor. It's a good occasion for me. No, I won't be very long, because I think indeed we can share our cases and examples, for hours. I think we're also all very impressed about what's going on in all our countries. In terms of urban gardens, I know that, for example, in the south of France, in Montsartou, it was decided by the municipality that it would be open and under certain rules. Here, the parks are also closed, and it is true that I don't know whether you can go to a public, to a community garden, but I suppose it also depends as to whom is actually responsible for it and who owns the land. You know, maybe it's a public land, maybe it's private in the sense of community-led. So I would suggest the municipality is the best one to know that. But anyway, but I've seen that it's an issue that that arises everywhere. I personally go and throw away my compost in a urban garden close to where I live, and I managed to go there early in the morning when there's nobody. So I think I'm following the rules. In Brussels, we're allowed to go out for physical activity on our own, at least. And so anyway, so that works. I'm following the rules. I don't get the details about the Solidarity food package, but I wanted also to share with you an example of a project we've launched in Brussels, where we decided to collect food surplus to prepare the vegetables to then give them to some other people who would cook them for refugees. And the main question there was to how to follow the rules, the sanitary rules, in order to ensure, you know, basic sanitary rules, but also to ensure there's no contamination of the virus. So hopefully, I just finished a project which was on the collection of food surplus and how to respect sanitary rules. This is in French, so it's just for your information. It's not really promotion, although it's online. But it was really interesting to say, okay, guys, so this, you are at home, you collect the food, you have to wear a mask, you don't necessarily need to wear gloves, but you need to have clean clothes, you need to clean everything, you need to ensure that there is no contact, and all of this. And all these small details about sanitary rules are extremely important in this whole food solidarity system. Just a word, 2 words about elderly people. Deliveries. Here, one of the reasons why people increasingly buy from short food supply chains is that you have to wait a few weeks for deliveries from the supermarkets. And some supermarkets have canceled their deliveries, including to elderly people. So this is indeed an issue, but people find solution as far as I can see. And we have an increasing number of networks led by charities, by retirement homes, by public sector, in order to support elderly or sick people to go and do their groceries, but also to support them in going to the bank, to the chemists, or to walk their dogs or anything else. So indeed, it is true that, as was said before, that increasing number of solidarity activities and these kinds of networks, some of them formal and informal. And let's not forget that we have many informal activities as well, where you can just go and, you know, knock at the door of the neighbor and ask him if they need anything. It doesn't have to go via platforms or via Facebook.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, concerning the community gardens, I'm curious from Igor. We just got from Carlo from Milan saying in Milan, the community gardens were closed, so they're considered as parks. Igor, please tell us a little bit what your impressions are.
Well, with community gardens, it's like that. It depends how they are treated. Are they treated as open places? But usually they are not open places, so not everybody can get into the community gardens. It's usually like that in Slovenia. I don't know how the restrictions are in Italy. And the number of people that can actually go into the community gardens is limited with the plots that are available or being worked on. So you have a certain number of people, actually the maximum number of people that can be there at one time or the other, but they are not even in the high season. Not everybody is there at the same time. So I would suggest that if people just use the common sense with the community gardens, it will help food production a bit, because people who are working in the community gardens, so they are there for the reason. They are not there because, I don't know, it's just fun, but usually they are in the social position that they want to have this opportunity to grow their own food, to increase their material situation. So just use the common sense and talk to the either municipality or regional, I don't know who is in charge of this, but you can also set the rules, because now it's not too much work at the gardens as such. So you can do your work maybe in an hour or in 2 hours. So they can, and it's not so important because it's not so hot outside. in which part of the day you are doing this work. So it can be regulated if this is the case, but it comes down to the micromanagement and using the common sense.
Igor, you got actually a direct questions from Tom in the UK, who is asking you, you spoke about the 8-10 a.m. window at food shops for the elderly. Does this include friends, family, and neighbors buying on elderly people who can't leave their homes due to the health mobility?
No.
How do you manage it? And how we are facing this difficulty in Brighton, lots of different approaches and level of support for the most vulnerable. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is recommended hours. They are not being strictly enforced, but it's a recommendation, and to, let's say, to 90% people are up with that. So there is not being reported the bigger issue or problem with that kind of regulation. It's just common sense. If elderly people are coming between 8 and 10, just don't go there. So just go later or go in the afternoon. It doesn't matter. We are more or less working from home, so you can choose your hours where to go. It's just adjustment that is actually costing nobody anything.
And there's also a comment from Richie in Scotland, who is saying, how can we think about consolidating the positive sides effects of the COVID crisis? So could there be more people trying to grow food and more folk buying from the local farmers directly? So I think Marcelline and Igor are agreeing, no? How do you feel? This is...
Well,
and I would just like to add, if I may, another development. Yes, sorry, Marcelline, I was jumping now. There is also being good cases. So, you know, the fan groups of the local football clubs are usually quite in the numbers. So in our case in Maribor, they offered the service of delivering food to the elderly. So you can imagine now 3,000-4,000 people that are the age group between 15 and 25 or 30 years old are willing to do this service as an organized unit. There was a similar case, for example, in Zagreb, which unfortunately, beside the crisis, also had an earthquake on Sunday. And the local football fan club helped move medical equipment for one place to another. So they voluntarily came up and did this social service to the hospital to move the equipment to be able to treat the wounded and the people who needed actually to do this. So there are these acts of kindness or just getting, you know, help where it's needed, also from this kind of groups that usually you don't expect these things, but now there are different times, and this is quite common now in this area.
No, this is really beautiful. Marcelline, a couple of closing words.
Well, I would just maybe comment on that and add a few closing words. Lots of people are discovering the taste of real food. As my friend Alicia was saying, some people actually wrote to her that parsley had some taste. So with short food supply chain, there is indeed a discovery of real fresh products. You actually eat the products which were picked up the morning of the same day. Let's not forget that not everybody has access to it. It's still higher than the cheapest food you can find in the supermarket. But at the same time, indeed, there is interest, growing interest, and that's maybe the moment to go into further reflection about the promotion of short food supply chain. The main issue is it's coming extremely fast. So even though people have been talking for years, people, organizations, activists, individuals, governments, some governments have been discussing that for years. We can't just decide over 1 month that the whole system, short food supply chain will change totally. Something we haven't talked at all about today, which is not maybe the topic, but it's also the impact this crisis has on global economy and global food supply chain. So I fully agree, like our colleague from, was it Ireland, the UK? Sorry, the last comment you read, that there is indeed we can move towards more, a real, I would say, towards more sustainability food supply chain. But we know it's going to take time. So let's think cleverly how we can act today for better impact in the future, and not to, I would say, not to screw it today. It cannot. We shouldn't mix up everything, and we shouldn't miss the opportunity because we haven't been quick enough. Because just systematically speaking, in terms of system, it's not possible that way. So a few closing words, right?
Yes.
Is it the round of the I wrote down in my sheet all there that we're really talking about issues related to nature. So we've heard that nature is going back to the we have dolphins in Venice, and I mean nature is here. Nature is fighting hard against the virus. Nature, I think, is okay. The issue is more related to us as a human being, as behaviors, as the way we react, our own anxiety, our own way of eating, cooking, the relationship, this whole issues we're talking about has onto the economy, as we said, local economy, state economy, also global economy, and society in general. So this is maybe my last word would be that there are many things happening in parallel at the moment. My drawing was just also a way to say that there are many things happening, and it's all interlinked. As we know, the food system is extremely complex, and that's maybe the time not only we need to sit down and think about what we're doing, but to push for quicker action and to actually make changes happen. And this is nothing will be the same after the crisis in any case. So let's take this opportunity to transition in the most effective and efficient way. Thanks.
I think our friend from Scotland will be happy to hear that. Igor, would you like to share a
Sorry.
couple of closing words from your side?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, this is a real opportunity for people to realize that there is a local food supply possibilities, that they can change the habits and support local businesses. The global food supply chains will not disappear from one day to the other, because the system is already set and it's keep on going and growing. But we can, with the time, increase the importance of the local supply chains, and people will slowly but surely turn to the local food. This is just one of the opportunities where they can do it, let's say, forcefully now, because they are forced to think sometimes in the different ways, and they have to find different solutions how they will supply themselves. On the other hand, we can also rethink some of our own personal choices, and I think this is the great time for every one of us to rethink how we are living, what we are doing, and how we want to live in the future. So the choices we make, and I had this discussion this morning when I was interviewing for one of the local things that we are doing here in Slovenia. This crisis also kind of gives us opportunity to think, what are we doing? How can we sustainably live after the crisis? What kind of changes can we as a person, each one of us, do, and what kind of things we will do after this is over? It will be over sooner or later.
And we have to make the most of it. Absolutely. Thank you.
And I think it's up to us. If we can make these personal changes, then everything else can change with it.
So thank you. I apologize that we got some other questions that could not get answered. So I apologize. I think we're heading towards the end of this session. So I ask you there will be anyway space for further comments and questions also in getting back. And Igor, yes, tell me.
Yeah, just send us the questions via our emails or something, and we can answer them, and then you can post it on as answers on your platform.
Very good. Thank you, Igor. That's a brilliant idea. And I will ask you also to share with us also the links of all the projects and initiatives you've been mentioning, and also your the brochure, the booklet you were showing, Marcelline. So even if it's in French, I'm sure Google Translate will do miracles. Heading towards an uplifting closing, I would ask Stefano Patti to join us
Hello. I think everyone was asking, like, who's this guy that just, just arrived?
Are you the brother?
Yes, indeed. Yes, yes. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm here. So thank you, Daniela, and thank you, Cooperative City team. I'm here to read a poem by Gianni Rodari. It's called The Loaf, and I think it's really precise for your chat about food. So, The Loaf. If I were a baker, I'd make a huge loaf big enough to feed the entire earth and all of those in need. A loaf the size of the sun, as golden and fragrant as a colorful mum. A loaf that size would be eaten by the poor, the children, the elderly, and the wrens. It will be a day to commit to memory, a day without famine, the most beautiful day in history. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And indeed, this is something that when we say that we would like something uplifting, and this is really the moment to start thinking about, this is my little also present to you, just as a laugh, is that given about the loaf, we have to definitely set up a post-quarantine party all together and make sure that we have a huge feast all together. So I'm really looking forward to the next time we meet in person, that we are really going to celebrate that we got this over. And this said,
done.
And this said, there's a round of thank yous. First of all, definitely to Marcelline and to Igor and to Francesco. Also to the people in Rome who, a bit like Marcelline was doing, have been sharing I've been contacting so many of the local initiatives, from Amedeo Valente that we heard in the market, but Giacomo Lepri from the fields was explaining about the challenges in production, Danila Ciuffoli, and many others that have been explaining about what is happening on the ground. And this is really, really essential. And we will anyway keep sharing these experiences in the coming days to make sure that we can share with you all that is happening. There is also a very, very big thank you from my side to all the Utopian team, because in order to set this up, there's been a big effort from everybody. I'm the front woman of the team, but there's been a very, very big effort from editing the articles, making sure that the technology was in place, and a lot of work that has been done in doing research for material and information. And I would like to do a very, very big thank you to everybody, because in this time, it's very, very important that we put together and really push forward in these challenges and overcome it. I invite you all to join us next Friday, same time, on the same channels, and you are very welcome to send comments, questions, suggestions also of what you would like to hear also from these sessions. Cooperative City in Quarantine, I'm afraid, is going to go on for another bit, hopefully not too long, but still for some time. So we have a lot of space for improvement on the format, on the modality, and so on. So we're very, very looking forward to having your input. This said, I hope I haven't forgotten anything fundamental, and if I did, I apologize and I will write it down in the chat. And this said, I thank you very, very much, and I'm looking forward to the post-quarantine party, eating a huge loaf.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye. Lovely to see you. Bye.
And thanks, Stefano, as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.